Michigan's been dominant. Who has Michigan played? You can take it either way, but each and every week we get another data point and we find out more about this football team that has made it through the non-conference schedule at 3-0. Rutgers is coming up next. We got Justin Rowe on the line from Blue by 90 podcast to help break down the Wolverines as he does each and every week here at the Voice of College Football. Justin, how's it going today?
Doing well. Tell me if you've heard this before. Michigan is playing very well through their non-conference schedule, and people are jumping on board. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I've heard that once or twice or 37 times.
Yeah, seems like it's a broken record. After the obvious poor season last year, right back on track with all these non-conference wins, and now you head into the Big Ten conference schedule, and we'll see if that is actually accurate or if that was just those fluff games.
Please like the video, share these videos out on social media, and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. So, Justin, there are some people who will not be pleased until there's a big-name opponent on the other sideline. You could score 1,000,000 points, but we see teams that are supposed to be at Michigan's caliber every week in college football struggling to get past these teams, winning by a score or two. They are laying down the hammer each and every week in a different way. Sometimes the defense has been consistently good through 3 games. But in regards to 63 points against Northern Illinois, not a good football team. A football team, though, that's a couple weeks removed from beating Georgia Tech. And if you connect the dots and you're a fan of doing that, took Clemson to the wire on Saturday. So just a dominant all-around performance against NIU.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. You have to take into, effect who that opponent is. But Michigan through 3 games, and especially on Saturday, did what they're supposed to do against an inferior opponent. So I don't think you can take anything away from them in that. And so what I think I was most pleased about, and most fans would probably agree, is after Washington, where they ran it 50 sometimes and barely threw the ball, they only had Cade McNamara had 44 yards passing. They went back to what they were doing in week 1, where they took some deep shots. Obviously, running the ball was still the identity. Blake Corum, Hassan Haskins, even Donovan Edwards got in there and all played really well. But they aired it out. Cade McNamara to Cornelius Johnson, 87-yard touchdown, which is the 3rd longest touchdown in Michigan history. So they went back to what they were. It's a little more balanced, obviously very much more run heavy, but they were able to open it up a little bit. And I think that's what most people were pleased about.
I told you before we started to record that Cade McNamara's season stats look like a 1-game stat for most quarterbacks across the country, about 350 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks, but very efficient. The no picks, as long as he can keep that stat up, that would be optimum efficiency, of course. So your thoughts about Cade McNamara, and again, a very small sample size in regards to taking shots downfield, but he's connecting.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, on Saturday, he only played 2 quarters. So you do have to take that into effect as well. He didn't play. He only played 3 quarters in week 1 as well. Obviously we thought that he struggled a little bit against Washington too, but they took what they were going to with the run. What I think about Cade McNamara is what he's shown is that he's capable of making every throw. Whether they're going to do that a lot or not is definitely more the question. But he's been throwing the deep ball pretty dang well. He gets it to his running backs on the out routes. He gets it to his fast wide receivers, in the middle of the field as well. He even got it to his tight ends a couple times, which Michigan has used their tight ends very heavily, under Jim Harbaugh as well. And so I think Cade McNamara is super capable. Whether he's going to be, highlight reel guy, probably not. But I think that he is very capable in terms of what he can do. And the efficiency is what stands out. 8 for 11 on Saturday. He was 9 for 11 in game 1. They're trying to use Cade McNamara in what was kind of a Jake Rudock type in Jim Harbaugh's first year, where field general, game manager type guy, don't make those mistakes, no turnovers, as you said. And then maybe we see them take some more deep shots as people do stop the run. When we go into Rutgers and Wisconsin in the next few weeks, they're not going to be able to run the ball quite like they can against Northern Illinois. So they might have to throw the ball more. And that's where we'll really see if Cade McNamara is that guy that can do it all or not.
And it seems, Justin, like they're using J.J. McCarthy in such a way to send an obvious message that Cade McNamara is the starter. We're not trying out J.J. McCarthy. Cade McNamara is the starter. But fortunately, they've been so dominant through 3 games that they can bring in J.J., and then he's going to be ready if they need him under game circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to see JJ. He's the 5-star. He's that guy, obviously highly recruited. And so I think that JJ has also come in and he's made it clear that he's also capable of making most of these throws. I think that what we saw from him in the spring and even a couple times here early in this fall season is that he makes freshman mistakes. That's expected, right? He's not quite game ready. I don't think to be the number one guy, but I 100% agree with you that if anything were to happen to Cade McNamara, if he were to stumble, JJ's ready right there to come in and probably be a very serviceable quarterback and do basically what they're asking of Cade McNamara is not a whole lot. So I think JJ could do the exact same. Now, the thing is that I think if JJ comes in, we saw him actually run the ball a couple times. He had some read options where he pulled and took it and showed his legs. And that's what he can give to this offense that Cade McNamara can't quite do as well. And so I know there's a portion of the fan base that says, hey, if this is all we're looking for in a quarterback, why not throw the guy in that can chuck it very deep, use his legs, be super versatile, and see what happens? Because I don't know, Mark, here's my question. Let's say Cade McNamara does everything he's asked for this whole season. What do you do next year? When JJ's a sophomore, Cade's still going to be there, and then you have to make a decision. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
It is because you've got the high ceiling guy versus the guy that's doing everything right. And as long as you feel very confident about the other aspects of your team, and Jim Harbaugh known to be a conservative coach in certain ways, and this would be the one way, as most coaches are, that want the security of knowing what he's getting from that position rather than, okay, this is a bit more of a wild card. So we will, of course, track that as we go. But Michigan fans also, from the standpoint, as you mentioned before we started to record, from a tandem standpoint, got to see something maybe of the future opening the second half with not just JJ at the quarterback position, but Donovan Edwards doing his thing with 86 yards rushing right behind him in the formation.
Yeah, and this, I mean, we knew that Michigan has Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins, which is probably the best running back duo in the Big Ten, maybe in the country, right? Now you had Donovan Edwards, a freshman, who he showed on Saturday that his long, I believe it was a 58-yard touchdown. He did a little hesitation, let the hole open up, and then shot like a bullet through the hole and took off, and he was gone. And so now all of a sudden you kind of have questions there. How much, we saw last year the 3 running back rotation was Michigan's downfall. Now, how do you get Donovan Edwards into the game? Do you get him in, in these circumstances as well? But what I liked from Mike Hart and Josh Gaddis on Saturday with how they use this running back rotation is they put Donovan Edwards in early in the second quarter, and they used him for a full drive, right? Instead of last year, it was Corum for 1, Haskins for 1, Zach Charbonnet for 1. They would do 1 play almost at a time or 2 plays at a time. It felt like they used guys 1 drive at a time, which gets them into a better rhythm. So I felt like Mike Hart made some big improvements in the rotation, coming to Michigan this year.
Why that had to be figured out at this late of date, I don't really understand. Those guys played football at that level. They should understand that, in every situation's a little bit different. I guess there would be, if you make a 45-yard run, you yank the guy out for a play, possibly if he's gassed. But at the same time, running backs, most players want some kind of rhythm. And obviously that's what you get when you play the full drive. Okay. The defense continues to be dominant. Maybe not even with their most dominant player to date on Saturday against NIU. Hearing good things about players all over the place. I watched the Washington game. I saw probably a quarter to a half against Western Michigan. Full disclosure here, not a play against Northern Illinois. I let that one go. But defense has been rock solid, and the stars are playing like stars.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Ross is leading this team for sure. He's that super senior that's been there for a long time. He led the team with 6 tackles on Saturday. And so what I thought was kind of impressive or different, I guess, unique after the Washington game, where it was very clear that this defense carried that team, right? They were making the big plays. They were flying all around the ball. Well, on Saturday, they were still flying all around the ball, but there was one, interception that almost was a pick six. But other than that, it wasn't huge sacks or big plays, interceptions, fumble recoveries. They did their jobs and really, made that all work. And I think that's what Mike McDonald is really all about. Coming from the NFL, I think that's, the whole MO of a lot of those D coordinators in the NFL, where it's, you don't have to make a play. It's do your job, take care of your business and your situation, and everybody else around you will do the same. And so where I thought that was most apparent on Saturday was that Aiden Hutchinson, possibly top 3 defensive end in the country, right? He only had 2 tackles. He didn't have a huge impact on the game in terms of making sacks or stripping the ball like he did against Washington. But he did his job, and everybody else did theirs too. And this defense was still pretty incredible. Obviously, only allowing 10 points, and 7 of that touchdown was late in the fourth quarter. So I'm really impressed with how this defense is playing and what Mike McDonald is doing. It's a bend but don't break defense. They're not, it's not Dr. Blitz with Don Brown anymore, where they're just throwing a million people at you all the time. But they take care of their business, and they've been stout through 3 games.
Got Justin Rowe on the line, breaking down Michigan football, stepping into Big Ten play this Saturday against Rutgers. You can catch Justin on Twitter. You see the handle right there on the banner, at Justin Rowe 92, Blue by 90 podcast as well. All right, so it's on to a Rutgers team that has not had the most difficult opponents either, but still they've stepped in the ACC against Syracuse, held them to 7 points, completely annihilated Temple and Delaware. It's a pretty impressive showing in regards to what Greg Schiano has done to what was by far the worst program in the Big Ten. They had lost 21 consecutive conference games until Schiano stepped back on campus. We know what happened last year in Piscataway. This team has to be taken seriously, although Michigan is a 19-point favorite in the game. And now we're hearing some news which may, I don't know, Justin, cause Jim Harbaugh to open up the offense to 15 pass attempts.
That would be crazy. I don't know. You're getting out of, you're talking crazy now. But yeah, crazy news this morning. So Chris Long and Max Melton, who are 2 cornerbacks for Rutgers. Max Melton is their starter. I believe you said he had 2 interceptions on the year, correct?
Correct.
They've both been suspended for Saturday's game due to they were taken into police custody earlier this morning as a result of an incident involving a paintball gun. So what I heard is something minor weapon charges and aggravated assault, which not sure what the story is. It's kind of a wild story here, but definitely, takes 2 guys out of the secondary, which I agree. Maybe Michigan opens it up a little bit. Because I was definitely expecting them. The forecast on Saturday is actually 60 and rain. So I was expecting them to run the ball. They very well still could all day long. But it throws a definite wrinkle into what's going to happen on Saturday.
And it's into Big Ten play against Rutgers. The team, as I mentioned off the top in regards to the results, is doing a lot of good things. Their defense seems to be legitimately good, like Big Ten good, stout, strong. Actually, I heard a conversation yesterday about defense across the league, aside from some places like Columbus, Ohio, that there's strong defense across the board in the Big Ten, and Rutgers not touting them as a Georgia defense or something to that degree. But then they've got Noah Vedral as a quarterback who's got a ton of experience. This is a team to be taken seriously here in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably I think the 19 points. If I'm a betting man, I'm probably taking the points. I don't know, with this news, it kind of throws something in there, but 19 points is a lot for a Big Ten game. Whether that's you're winning by 3 touchdowns if you're covering that spread. And so with the rain game, with how Michigan's ran the ball and they take their time, unless you're throwing up big play after big play, it's hard to get to that spread. So I think Rutgers is not to be slept on. Like you said, they've played really well this year. Their defense, I think, is a top 20 in the nation against the rush, which is obviously Michigan's strong point. But I expect Michigan to continue to run the ball. Rutgers has relied on Noah Vedral for basically their entire offense. You were talking about having Cade McNamara's stat line through 3 games look like one. Well, Isaiah Pacheco, who is Rutgers running back, also in 3 games, he only has 152 rush yards. That looks like a 1-game stat line as well. So they're going to rely on the pass. And so if the weather is bad, I expect them to struggle offensively against Michigan. And then I obviously expect Michigan to continue to pound the ball. But again, this is not a Rutgers of the past. This is not going to be, the 78-0, 79-0 game of 2016 when Michigan, ran for 1,000 yards and put up points like they were playing a Pee Wee football team. This is a solid football team in the Big Ten now.
So I've been scurrying for the over-under on that because I was thinking, okay, this probably speaks more to Rutgers' inability on offense and Michigan's stout defense, possibly in the terms of this 19-point spread. So we're at 49.5. Trying to do the math here. What do we have? A 35-14 35-14-ish game.
Yeah.
36-13 game, 35-14. No, we back it down from there. 34-15 if we've ever heard such a score. But that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that game happening, right? Where Michigan, they stop they let Rutgers maybe get a couple pass plays. Noah Vedral scrambles and does a couple things for a couple touchdowns, but mostly they're stout. And then Michigan just runs the ball, maybe 1 pass touchdown, but they're going to try and run the ball. And it's a 21-7 game at half that ends up at 35-14. I could definitely see that happening on Saturday. Once again, especially with the weather. But that seems about right. I don't question Vegas these days. They're pretty damn good, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. They pay for all those hotels. So they're making some money somewhere. Doesn't hurt that they take 10% off the top, though. So they take their share. They just want even betting on both sides. They don't care. They don't need the public to implode and screw up. They still take their 10% and say, just let's keep it even on both sides.
Exactly.
Got Justin Rowe here, Blue by 90 podcast, join him there, and at Justin Rowe 92 on Twitter. Justin wanted to hit you up on the Big Ten race because there have already been significant games played in the conference, i.e. Penn State and Wisconsin, Ohio State, Minnesota, and a few others, to give us a look at the conference race to a certain extent. All the big non-conference games have basically been played as well. So we've got a pretty good barometer on who's good and who's not good. And Ohio State's not playing well. And there's this layer of teams that are really good. I'm not going to tout them as national championship contenders, but as Big Ten contenders. Iowa, Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, all have already proven against quality opponents. And in Michigan's case, you could say what you would about Washington to be just really strong teams that are legit top 15 teams in America. That the Big Ten race, this could be a lot of fun and unpredictable for the first time in forever.
For sure. And I think the Big Ten East specifically, because after last year, you look at Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State, and none of them had a winning record, right? And so all of a sudden, these three teams look like they could contend with Ohio State. And then, like you said, with Ohio State not playing well for the first time in 10 years, all of a sudden looks like that Big Ten East division is super wide open. Now, from the Michigan perspective, you have to expect Ohio State to figure it out. I think they have year after year. They've stumbled a couple times. I mean, I remember the Virginia Tech game in 2014, and then we all know what happened then. And so, I expect Ohio State to figure it out, but that defense is pretty suspect. I think the offense is going to continue to carry them. But that defense, this seems – I know we're 3 games in. It's super early to say this, right? And everything's going to shake out. But this seems right now like the most suspect that Ohio State has looked in quite some time. Most beatable team, right? Especially with a freshman quarterback still in there and struggling at times as well. And so with that being said, and then Penn State now has 2 very good wins on their schedule already 3 games in. Wisconsin's still going to be a solid team because that defense is incredible. And then, Iowa, I don't know if they're the 5th best team in the nation, but dang, they're playing pretty good. That defense is going to, be tough to score on. And so I couldn't agree more. This is going to be very, very fun throughout the Big Ten. Once again, half of me wants to say, it's going to shake out how it always does, just because that's usually how it plays out. But, I think most Michigan fans right now are looking ahead a little bit past Rutgers to that Wisconsin game. And then looking to October 30th, all of a sudden, there's a lot of chirping between Michigan and Michigan State already, with them both 3-0. And most people didn't think that they'd be, 2 solid teams. So Michigan State, going down to Miami and playing, a top 25 team at the time, that's a signature win for Mel Tucker in just year 2. It almost seems like year 1 under him, just because of last year. So the Big Ten, I tell you what, it is there is that layer. It's almost not top heavy. It's like, there's a good chunk of teams right there that all seem like, you could say any of them have as good a chance as any of the other ones to win it right now.
That's a lot of teams. That's like 5 or 6 teams. And Ohio State's kind of its own category that, we know they got all this talent, but they're not playing well, where the other 5 or 6 are playing well and playing defense. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even mention Indiana, who, despite 2 losses, only won in the Big Ten. They're a capable team. They led Cincinnati 14-0. They fumbled inside the 10 late. They would have taken a lead with like 2 minutes left. So it could be a season. Maryland's 3-0. They can score. They've beaten West Virginia, who's a solid team. They've already got a win in the Big Ten over Illinois. Like this could be a season where you think somebody's in the driver's seat and then Maryland beats them the next week. And teams like that come out of nowhere and win games.
I was just going to say that even Nebraska gave Oklahoma a run last week, who we thought they were going to be the worst team in the nation after the first 2 weeks, And so I totally agree. How I see this Big Ten race playing out is exactly how you just said it. There's going to be the big matchups, obviously, between those 5 to 6 teams that are going to, indicate a lot. But there's going to be some game against Maryland or Nebraska or Indiana or something that those teams aren't in the race, but they're going to affect this race big time, where somewhere down the stretch, somebody's going to slip up because they're looking ahead to that next big opponent. And that may be the reason that somebody, falls out of that race or doesn't make it to the Big Ten title game.
We could go down in a couple more spots. Purdue played a really strong game in South Bend against Notre Dame. Minnesota went to Colorado, who was just coming off a game where they took Texas A&M to the wire, and they completely obliterated, held them to 60 yards of total offense.
I don't know what to think about Minnesota now, because they looked great before Ibrahim went out against Ohio State. Then it kind of fell apart in the third quarter there. Then they didn't look good in week 2, but now look great in week 3. So I totally agree. There's that top level of Big Ten teams that are, really, really solid. And then there's another layer that are like, I'm not sure what they could do. They very well could put up some I think it's going to be an interesting race. That's for sure.
We took so many calls on Saturday night about Ohio State, and people are ready to jump off bridges. Like literally, like Ryan Day has gone from like what was being stated before the Oregon game was that Urban Meyer was basically a bum, and Ryan Day doesn't lose games like Urban Meyer. He's incapable of losing a Big Ten game or a regular season game. Like people were telling me that. Like I was an idiot for picking Ohio State to go 11-1.
Oh my God.
I like offended all sorts of people because I picked them to go 11-1. It was a regular season game, and that they were 2 touchdowns better than everybody on the schedule. And Ryan Day was incapable of losing a regular season or Big Ten game. And like literally 10 days later, like they are teetering on, we're falling back in with the rest of the Big Ten. And Ryan Day, I don't know that he's a really good coach, and maybe we need to be figuring things out down the road, doing something different. It's crazy. Yeah, they have real issue, and I don't know how to answer that. I could see it going either way. I could see Ohio State with the rest of the pack. I don't think they're going to implode to 5-7, but I could see them losing 2 or 3 games and just being in the mix with everybody else, or I could see them righting the ship and finishing this thing off, because that's happened before. But they have real issues.
I was just going to ask you, so obviously it's all come out. Ryan Day not speaking very highly of his defensive coordinator lately. Do you think there are like some internal issues going on that they can't figure out? It doesn't seem like it's just like personnel, like they're struggling with some bad players on defense. It seems like there's some butting of heads and people aren't on the same page.
Yes, it does. It does. And they've been there before with that, with Greg Schiano and Alex Grinch in 2018. So I don't know how if you have a head coach who's not confident in the defensive coordinator, and with Schiano and Grinch, had they had those issues and didn't have that confidence, you could turn to the other guy. But I don't know what they would do at this point mid-season.
Right.
They're going to have to come to some type of amiable agreement on how the defense is going to be run and what's working and what's not.
I don't think Ryan Day can run the offense and the defense, so they're going to have to figure something out. But what is your confidence level in CJ Stroud through 3 games? Because he's shown greatness and he's also shown not so great.
Yeah, I think he's a mid-level quarterback in the Big Ten right now. I don't think he's extremely good. I think that he's just doesn't show a skill set that's elite. I also don't think that he's making great decisions. Basically, the balls that he's completing for big yardage are passes that just about any quarterback playing in college would make. Their receivers get that wide open on occasion.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that they were going to approach this stretch against Tulsa, Akron, and Rutgers as a time to get these other guys in and see what they can do, but they didn't have that luxury on Saturday. And if Ryan Day is telling the truth, and I say that not in a derogatory way, but just in the way coaches need to conceal things. CJ Stroud's the best player. He decidedly won the job. It wasn't even that close. He had pulled away throughout the summer, but he's a decent quarterback. He's an average quarterback as it stands right now, but he's only played 3 games in college, but he's not showing any tremendous skill set.
Well, I think it's also showing us how good Justin Fields was.
Yeah.
and how good, you could name off the last 5 quarterbacks, right? Yeah. But Justin Fields was on a different level, and that was, 40 touchdowns and 1 interception. That wasn't Ryan Day just calling the offense and that, and everything going well. Justin Fields was that good. And so I think there were probably a lot of Ohio State fans, and I don't see why they wouldn't think this, but that it's just plug and play. Right. It's just that, you've had that for a decade now where the next guy just steps in and he's just as good as the last guy. And so, I understand that the freak out, right, where you all of a sudden have somebody that is not even bad, but just average, not great. And, things feel like they're, the sky is falling. And so you probably say thank the Lord for Travion Henderson in this run game, but I know for the first time in a long time, this seems like it's, again, we're through 3 games. This is an overreaction, but from Michigan fans' perspective, this is the most beatable that Ohio State has been, in Michigan's offense and defense seem in the best position to possibly beat them in the last few years too. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. By
Justin,
the way, I have one more stat for you too.
Yes.
We had talked about the explosive plays from Michigan, in the past few games. Obviously, not as much against Washington, but in week 1, where they had 13 plays of 10 yards or more. They had 20 plays of 10 yards or more on Saturday against Northern Illinois, which, I mean, I don't know if we've seen that from a Michigan team in a long time.
Good stuff from Justin Rowe as Michigan takes on Rutgers, battle of the unbeatens in the big house on Saturday. Justin, appreciate you stopping by as always.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.